Hello, everyone, and welcome to your RE lesson for today. When we left off last week, we were doing the story of Passover. You were independently reading that work. And so now I want to go over this is the story of Passover, but actually, what they're not saying on the cover is actually this is the story of Exodus. This is a book from the Holy Bible called Exodus. And we are now going to compare the picture book to the Bible and see if just to see what a children's picture book takes from the Bible. So there are 66 books in the Bible. I'm going to stop for a moment, and can you find the book of Exodus? Okay, little clue if you haven't found it yet. It's in the Old Testament. Okay, if you haven't found it yet, it is in the book of laws. So here we have law. Do you find it? So last year we studied the book of Genesis, and this year we're in the second book. We're in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament. Here is some of the book that we read on Get Epic. It said, the story of Passover begins more than 3,000 years ago when Jacob and his family settled in Egypt. Jacob was called Israel, and his family were called the children of Israel. They were also called Hebrews because of the language they spoke. Many years passed. Jacob and his children had all died. To the Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, the children of Israel were outsiders. He was afraid that one day they would rebel. To control them, he made them slaves. He forced them to do hard work. They were beaten, some were killed. Let's take a look at what the Bible says. So this is the first chapter of Exodus, and the first chapter of Exodus starts, these are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all the generation died, but the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in number, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. So you can see this is generation and generations of the family. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So, in your picture book version, it said there that many years passed, so we saw many generations passed, and then we also saw that they were afraid. Sorry, I just need that to go away. That they were afraid that that they would rebel. So then it says, I'm up here on line 11. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter and harsh labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. And in all harsh labor, the Egyptians work them ruthlessly. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave the order to to kill every Hebrew boy who is born, and to let every girl live. So here we have. Oh, I'm sorry, my picture. I might just make my picture go away because I want you to see everything. Oh, that's better. The birth of Moses. So here's the book again that we were looking at last week. They couldn't tell him which boy it would be. So the Pharaoh says, kill all the young boys, because they couldn't tell which one it was going to be. This sounds a lot like what we learned about in the New Testament when Jesus was born. But in this case, the Pharaoh decreed that every newborn Hebrew boy must be thrown into the river and drown. One boy was saved. At first, his mother hid him. And then he grew too big to hide. She placed him in a small basket. She put the basket in the river. The baby's sister Miriam hid nearby to see what would happen. The princess, the Pharaoh's daughter, found the baby. She named him Moses and planned to raise him as her own child. Miriam ran to her. Should I get you someone to help you with the baby? Yes, the princess said. Miriam brought the baby's mother to work in the palace. Moses was adopted by the princess, but he knew he was one of the children of Israel. So this might be confusing, but Moses is sent down the river in a basket. His sister Miriam watches. His sister Miriam works for the princess, and when he shows up and the princess finds her, she says to him, says to her, I can go and get someone to take care of him. But it actually explains it better in the Bible. So let's go to the Bible passage instead. Come on. Okay. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. So now we know that Moses is actually 3 months old when he gets put in the basket. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Tar, do you see how this basket in the picture is covered in black? Tar is like you see it like in asphalt on the ground, on the roads. And, tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. So why is it covered in tar and pitch? I forgot to say. It's almost like it covers it in rubber on the outside so that water can't get in and it floats like a boat. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down the Nile to bathe. So that's Pharaoh's daughter you see in the picture. Her attendants were walking along the river bank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go? Oh, I'm sorry, I copied that twice. Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him of the water. So the Pharaoh is going to raise Moses as her own, but Moses was raised as a baby by his mother and then brought to the Pharaoh. So then we see in the book, Moses flees to Midian, and it said in the book, when he was a young man, he saw an Egyptian beat a slave. Moses attacked the Egyptian and killed him. Then he ran away. So let's see that in a little bit more detail in the Bible. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were, because remember, Moses is not an Egyptian, okay? And watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw 2 Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew? The man said, Who made you ruler to judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and thought, What I did must have become known. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill their troughs for water for their father's flock. Some shepherds came along. Sorry, I'm not going to read all that. But we can see Just like the book said, he killed an Egyptian and then he ran away. So we see that Moses actually flees to a town called Midian because the Pharaoh decided, I'm going to kill this person because he killed an Egyptian. But we are starting to see that Moses knows he's a Hebrew, and Moses connects with the Hebrew, even though it is the Hebrew people, the Israelites, that are the ones who are being enslaved right now by the Egyptians. So then we saw that picture of that big tree that was all in red. You can see a couple of its leaves here. It said Moses in the burning bush. So Moses settled far from Egypt. He married and worked as a shepherd. One day while Moses was watching his sheep, he saw a burning bush. There were flames, but the bush wasn't harmed. Moses, Moses, a voice called from the bush. Here I am. God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. He told Moses to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. So that is taking a very long part of the Bible and making it very short. I've even taken out some of the part of the Bible, because it talks all about how he becomes a shepherd. So when we were back here, it said that he meets this a priest of Midian. He has 7 daughters. He marries one of the daughters. There's many lines that talk about how he marries that and becomes a shepherd. And now we're here in the 3rd chapter of Exodus. So now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, Here I am. This is exactly what they wrote in the picture book. They took those words exactly out of the Bible. So that is chapter 3 of Exodus that we're on. We're going to look at this next passage, and I want you to think about 2 things. One is, what kind of God do we see in this passage? Okay. And 2, why does the author choose to write about God in this way? So what does he want the reader to believe? So us as the reader. So it said, the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to the Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So Moses is there. He sees a burning bush. There's more that I took out, that God actually tells him to take off his sandals because he's on holy land. And he says to listen to him. And he says, I'm giving you a mission. You can see this burning bush. You're on holy land. I'm giving you a mission. But I asked you, what kind of God do we see in this passage? We talked about this last year when we did the Genesis. There was 2 versions of Genesis, one where it had a calculating God and one that had a loving, giving God. So a calculating God that was very step by step and was even, I wouldn't say mean, but he was very strict. And then we see a God in the other story of Genesis that was very, breathed life into his people and was very caring, gave him gifts of animals. So now we see in this passage, I want you to consider the same thing. We have an author here who's telling you that God says to Moses, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out. And he's now giving this message to Moses that he's going to give a new land to these people. So what kind of God do we see here? And why did the author choose to write about God in this way? What does he want the reader to believe? So then the last part we're going to talk about today is this last page where Moses puts down his staff and blood flows into the river. So it says, Moses and his older brother Aaron went to the Pharaoh. They asked him to let the children of Israel go free. The Pharaoh refused. He found the children of Israel to work even harder. Moses and Aaron warned him that if he didn't let the Hebrews go, the waters of Egypt would turn to blood. The Pharaoh refused, and the waters turned to blood. Again, this page skipped an entire chapter 6 and a little bit of 7 and the end of chapter 5. So there's almost 2 chapters being skipped to this page. But in those chapters, let me just summarize. What happens is we meet, Moses speaks to God again. God says, you need to go speak for my people. Moses says, I can't. I don't think that I have the voice to do it. God gets a little bit upset, but he says to him, fine, go find your cousin Aaron. Sorry, your brother. Go find your brother Aaron. He goes and he still doubts God and asks him, like, am I really the right person? And God takes that staff that's in his hand, and when he throws it to the ground, it turns into a snake. And then he does another test where he puts his hand in his cloak and it comes out and he has a sick hand. And God says, this is me. I'm God. I don't know why you're doubting me. And then he also, what he does, I'm sorry, let me just think for a second. There's quite a bit that's skipped there. And he says to him, you need to, and he goes to speak to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh doesn't listen to him. And God says, you need to go back and speak to him. So let's see where it says, and this is the plague of blood, and this is where this starts. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. So Moses going back, pleading to the Lord, and he says, Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to the Pharaoh in the morning, and as he goes out to the river, confront him on the bank of the Nile, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake. Then say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. This is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord, and the staff that is my hand, I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will be changed into blood. The fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams and the canals, over the pools and the reservoirs, and they will turn to blood. Blood will be everywhere in Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and stone. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded. And so we can see that's depicted here in this. Oh, gosh, sorry about that. We can see that that's here depicted in the picture. What I cut out of the picture is the Pharaoh was on the river in the boat in the book and Get Epic. And so the Bible says that he goes, and this is Moses' mission. So we are going to, in next class, talk about the 10 plagues. This is the first plague that happens where all of the water turns to blood, all of the fish die. So we're going to now go to your Google Doc, and you're going to answer 3 questions. The 2 questions I asked before about what kind of God this is and what the author is trying to convey. And now you're going to answer, why did God give this power to Moses? So in your Google Doc, answer the 3 questions in full sentences and using evidence from the text. So you have the text here. If you need to go back into my recording, go back and give me full sentences. Then you can choose one, or if you love drawing, many of these scenes you have just learned about, and illustrate it and label the people. Complete the drawing in color and with your best effort, and then you're going to upload that picture to the Google Doc. It's a great way of finishing off this creative week of mental health. So that is your lesson. Thank you so much, and can't wait to see your work. I'll share it with Miss Emmanuel too, because she loves seeing some drawings that you guys do. Thank you.